Today's episode is for leaders who feel the ground shifting under their feet and know they can't lead the same way they did 5 years ago. On this episode of State of the Biz by New York Festivals, I'm joined by the amazing Lenore Moritz, an executive coach and founder of Momentum. She works with senior leaders at exact moment leadership is being rewritten in our world, especially in advertising and marketing. I love this episode and conversation. We talk about what leadership actually requires in an AI-driven, high-pressure, always-on world. How to lead through uncertainty, how to manage fear, yours and your team's, why emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, and presence matter more than ever, and how leaders can stay human while everything around them gets more automated. If you're navigating change, pressure, or transition in your world and want to show up as a better, more intentional leader, this conversation will definitely hit home with you. So without further ado, Lenore Moritz, let's get into it. Lenore, I'm really glad you're here with me today.
I'm really glad to be here with you.
Yeah, welcome to State of the Biz. This is an exciting one. And it's I think, a timely episode about leadership and how to be a better leader in a time that's really an inflection point, I think, in all industries, but especially in advertising and marketing. There's so many amazing things happening. And, you work with senior leaders at a moment when the definition of leadership is being rewritten in real time. And that's certainly happening in our industry. So you're seeing all different types of leaders and what they're dealing with and the problems they're trying to solve and how they're trying to be better leaders. But, especially in advertising where AI is changing, not just how work gets done, but how leaders have to show up and expect the best from their teams and their talent, but also show up as leaders in an increasingly agentic and bot-driven world, which I haven't seen agentic show leadership yet, but you never know. So through Momentum, your executive coaching practice, which is, by the way, at thismomentum.com, if you wanted to go visit that, you help leaders navigate complexity, pressure, and transitions with clarity and intention. Those are the words that really resonated with me, having been through a variety of transitions. Intention is such an important component to that. So I look forward to talking about that. So before you founded Momentum, you worked at a high level in the communications part of the business and, for amazing brands like UTA, Meredith, NBC, and Time Inc. And then you made the pivot to be an executive coach. I mean, just out of curiosity, because I think it's a really interesting pivot. Why did you do that? What opportunity did you see in order to make that change?
Yeah. Well, I was working in those companies. I was working with everyone from C-suite leaders to heads of divisions, and I was running my own teams as well. So I kind of ran the gamut, and I knew what I liked and I knew what I was had some strengths in. But I figured I didn't really know, honestly, I didn't really know much about coaching.
Yeah.
But many years ago, my very trusted and beloved friends from college were but when, we were adults at this point, but they were like, you're a coach. It's the way you listen to us and you talk to us. And I was like, okay, I filed it away. And then years later, remembered that they had said this and thought, you know what, I'm going to get that training because it will be another tool in my toolbox.
Totally.
So I found a program to pursue that. Then I decided I really loved it. And then I decided that I would get credentialed by the International Coaching Federation. And to do that, you have to do 100 hours of work with people. That's quite a lot of time. Yeah. And as I was doing it, I thought, this is for me. This is all the stuff that I really love so much about my role now, with some of the stuff that I was ready to maybe leave behind. And so it just was a very natural fit for me. I think I'd always innately had a lot of that love for working with teams, or offering, coaching is not necessarily advice, but I really loved that aspect of my work. And this was another way to help people. And what I really wanted to focus on was kind of like where I was, like being in a company, but not really getting the benefit of a third party, a coach, somebody who can help me develop as a leader. And that's the focus that I wanted, was to help people become even better leaders.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I didn't think about this before we talked, but maybe there'll be some people who are listening that might get inspired to make that change as well. I mean, I think it's a very interesting pivot. I mean, for me in my career, I had really one coach who I had for almost 20 years, and he was a non-traditional executive coach because he used NLP, EMDR, and
Yep.
hypnosis as part of his process, which I'm a pretty new agey guy. So I latched on to that. And it, since I was a pretty young leader dealing with confidence issues, conflict issues, imposter syndrome, like all of those things, as I wanted to move up to the next level,
Mhm.
for me, having the right person for me made all the difference in the world. And so how do you, when you connect with somebody, like how do you help them find that connection with you?
I think it's really about, I mean, it doesn't even have to be, it's not like hiring somebody. Like,
Right,
it
right.
doesn't have to be like a real chemistry fit.
Mm.
It has to be that you show up differently than many other people in their lives do. And the way I think I do that in a pretty effective way is that I'm a very good active listener. And it's also a very important skill that leaders need anyway. And so I'm also modeling for them at the same time
Right.
when I'm doing my active listening. But I do think that it's like you show up for somebody differently and all of a sudden it's like, hold on, this feels better. I can actually use my voice here or we're going to shape me into whatever it is that I'm struggling with
Mhm,
or I'm not struggling. I just want to get to a different place. I want to break through. I don't even
mhm,
know what I want to break through to. So it's just, I think a lot of that connection is just being a different ear in their
mhm.
life.
And how, because I think both having a coach myself and having hired coaches for people on my team, whether they were high performers or maybe had an issue that we thought they were a high performer, but maybe there were some things they needed to work on. We'd hire a coach for them. I've seen both things happen. I've seen people be really successful and make it to the next level with a coach, and I've seen it not work. And what is expected of the person being coached in order for them to be success? It's like having a trainer. Like you have to do the work, you have to
Yeah.
eat right, you have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
What's expected of them in a relationship like this in order for them to break through?
I mean, truly, a growth mindset. Like
Mhm.
that's truly what makes the difference for people. And I do think, what's helpful, a follow up on this other question about what
Yeah.
makes that connection is I'm like you, right? Like I worked in corporate, I worked in big businesses. I had to navigate politics. I had to work with people that were very different personalities than I was. So I understand it's not like I just know the theory.
Right.
I worked in it
Yeah.
and then I learned on top of that.
That's
And so
cool.
that's really helpful. And so I think the people who kind of, let's call it succeed for lack of a better word, are the people who really do come with this growth mindset, with this idea of like, I'm going to be open. And when I have somebody that I'm working with that's like, I already do that. I already know that. They're not that many of them, but sometimes it
It
happens.
happens.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, great. How's that working for you?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an question. That's what you do already. Great. Is that working? Is everything totally
Yeah.
smooth? Like, how's that going? So, there's it's learning how to also, challenge people in a way that is gentle enough that gets them to really think differently with that growth mindset.
Yeah, I probably have been more receptive to it at different points in my career. So I certainly can understand the growth mindset piece. I
Mhm.
mean, I think I mean, leadership's changed a lot and it continues to change the role of leadership. I think especially for leaders who are probably a little more experienced and more advanced in their careers now having to manage multi-generational workforces. I mean, in advertising, the average age is somewhere around 27 or 28. And, for someone who's been in the business as long as I have, that's two generations away almost. And they have completely different expectations of the workplace and culture. What do you, as you look at our industry, what do you think that leaders are most unprepared for at the moment? As you've kind of assessed the landscape and meet with different people.
So I think today, I think in this moment, I mean, if you asked me this question a year ago, it might have been different. But I think in this moment, it's been the pace. It's been the pace of change and the expectation. So the expectation of like, we still need to succeed, obviously, but none of us really know how to do what we're doing or like work with these tools. make it not scary so that we are, something like AI becomes a tool and not the replacement that I think many people are worried about.
Right.
And, I happen to look at AI and I look at how people are using it, who are starting to adapt to it. And it very much is that. It's very much a tool and not something that has to be scary. But I do think that what people are unprepared for right now is this it's so fast. Listen, we always have uncertainty, and that's what we forget. But now it feels like there's even more
Yeah.
because every day there's something new and we need to be out ahead, not catching up. And so I think that those two things, this idea of like the rate of change and the idea that no human is wired to love uncertainty. It's not, our DNA says uncertainty is
I get
dangerous.
it.
So, yeah.
So I mean, that uncertainty as a leader, you look around our industry and, that every day you read about layoffs at a large scale and cuts and, from CEOs all the way through the org, right? There's nobody safe anymore. And I think that managing with that fear and or uncertainty, to your point about modeling and not, and inspiring confidence in your folks is a really interesting, and I think for any level of a leader is while you're managing your own fear,
Sure.
having to manage the fear of your team. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like that Brene Brown vulnerability moment, right?
Yeah.
This is where that's coming in because we don't need to have all the answers. Inspiring people and keeping them on the more positive focus is doesn't mean that you have to say you don't have to be like Pollyanna about it. It's not like everything's going to be great, don't worry, don't worry. It's more showing that vulnerability of like, well, we're really in uncharted territory, but having the transparency then to say, here's what we are going to do. So tip for today,
Mhm.
this is what I know we can do. So it's showing that vulnerability and then saying, here's what's in our control.
Yes.
Here's where we're going forward. And by the way, this might change in 3 weeks.
Right.
But for today, this is where we are. Still, you're instilling the confidence. You're instilling like we have a direction, but also we're all in it together. And
Yep.
that's okay, which also creates a culture of people can ask questions. People can say they're a little concerned about this thing or that thing. And that's okay. So you have to have that in a time of great uncertainty. You have to allow people the kind of the permission, to also be vulnerable
Yep.
and to, not always deliver in the same way they might have. It's only because they're not exactly sure. So anyway, that creates like a better culture for everybody when there's vulnerability, when there's some transparency. It's a little bit like when you're flying on an airplane, if you feel turbulence and the pilot hasn't said anything, that makes you a lot more
Yeah,
nervous.
that's true.
But when the pilot says, we're about to have some turbulence, but
Right.
it'll be like 5 minutes.
Yeah. You'll
Just
be
know.
okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's really great advice. I mean, I think it's okay to say, I don't know at the moment, but what I do know is within this scope, because the way that I always think about it is no matter where you are on the org chart, the person above you has what I call more knowledge on the margins, right? So the further you get up the org chart, the more that margin gets wider, and you can't see those margins.
Right.
If you're running a division or a region, the global CEO is going to know more on the margins than you know, and can't necessarily answer what's on those margins for your team. But you probably do know a good part of what the strategy is or what the direction is and how this particular group needs to help implement or achieve those objectives.
Yeah.
So we talked about how fast not only our industry, but really every industry is changing. The rate of change is, my father or my grandfather probably would, what is happening. What you talked about vulnerability, which I think is a really great trait in leaders, and I appreciate that. What does good leadership, in your opinion, look like, right? So if we're modeling good leadership, or because I like to have mentors that don't know me. I call it mentors that don't know me, like people that I observe and watch, whether they're public figures or people, other types of figures, that watch how they behave, how they move, how they act, what they say, how they handle hard things. when you're just framing, does good leadership look like? Industries moving as fast as ours.
Yeah, I think so. You have two different things. You have the skills and you have the
Mhm.
behaviors. So, skills, the technical part of your job, let's put that over here for a moment,
Yeah.
because that is something that people sometimes get trained on a little bit more, right? A little bit more.
Yeah.
But the the behavioral side is either modeled well or not well, but there aren't a lot of people taking the time to talk about the behavior, and it's absolutely essential because it's what creates the culture. So in my mind, emotional intelligence
Mm.
is the most important, and two components of that I'll highlight those. One is awareness or self-awareness,
Yeah.
and the other is empathy. And those two kind of go hand in hand. But this idea of self-awareness is like totally missing from so many people. And it's just understanding how it's kind of the idea of, are you responding or are you reacting?
Hmm.
We want to respond. We don't want to react in the workplace.
Right.
And it's just pausing and taking stock of what am I actually experiencing here? What's behind this? And how do I actually want to proceed with this? So that's really important. That's the self-awareness. And then empathy is kind of hand in hand with that, which is, okay, I know what I'm feeling. I also know what they might be
Right.
feeling. And by the way, I don't have to validate it. Feelings, how somebody is, emotionally in a workplace, you don't have to agree with it, but you do have to understand it.
Right.
So you don't have to validate it and be like, yeah, yeah, I'm sucked into that now too. That's such drama. Love
Mm.
that. Nobody wants that. So it's really just saying, but I get where you're coming from. That's empathy. So those two things, which all ladder up to emotional intelligence, are absolutely essential.
Yeah, I think those are two great points. I mean, even just to be vulnerable myself for a second, I think it took me I mean, I was thrown into leadership roles pretty young in my 20s, and it took me a while to learn the self-awareness piece, and it was probably because I was masking insecurities, that whether it was syndrome or whatever it might be, in order to have that self-awareness.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because when someone challenged you or it was a difficult situation or whatever it might be, your knee jerk is to react to that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
still see it in young leaders. And like we talked about before we started, there's not a lot of leadership training that happens. I mean, it happens and there's some out there. And depending on what level you're at, you might go on a 2-day offsite with your executive team and do a Myers Briggs and you guys learn how to deal with each other and all of those things. But so hiring a coach is certainly one direction. But what advice would you have for, let's say, junior to mid-level folks that maybe didn't study leadership and management and training in college and kind of got put, because they were really good at their skill set, which
Yep.
happens in advertising a lot because you're good at your skill, you get
Yeah.
promoted to
Yeah.
be a manager, which doesn't always translate, especially in creativity. What are some things that people could do to learn the emotional intelligence piece or learn how to be a better leader with all of the things that resources that are available to us?
Right. And that last thing you just said is so key with all the things that are available to us. Like honestly, there's too much, right? There's too much stuff out there. So my own take on it is pick the thing that's going to serve you the best and then read about it or learn about that. You don't need to be 12 different things. It's not even possible,
Right.
right? How can you be good at like 12 different things? So it's really about, okay, emotional intelligence, great. I want more of that. Or even if you boil it down to just like, okay, self-awareness, let me start with that. And pick the thing of these kind of behavioral ideas and go deep in that. Like you can read about it, you can listen to podcasts about it, you can ask, AI about it. Um, AI has its limitations because
Sure.
it's very like it's like the way I think of AI with this kind of stuff is it's great. Like, give me 4 points on how to be more self-aware, and you'll get something.
Yeah.
But it's a band-aid. It
Right.
is not a development.
Right.
That's fine. That's totally fine sometimes. But you want whatever it is that will help you actually grow and develop. That's if you're totally on your own, like that's how it is. If you know that you want training in something and you work at a company that has a learning and development department, maybe they can help you out as well. But yeah, I think it's like pick the thing that you're feeling you're really lacking and then go for it. Like if you're like, how do I motivate my team? Then go deep on how
Yeah.
do you motivate your team? Yeah.
One thing I try to do is at the end of every day, and sometimes the end of the week, depending on the week, is just a quick reflection on the day and how I showed up as a leader at in the 50 or 60 interactions I had during that day. And a lot of them are just like this with my teams around the world. So it's not less and less in a conference room with somebody and more on calls like this. So it even becomes, your reaction even becomes even more pronounced. And try to scorecard or break down just in my own head, like, did I handle that particular critical conversation the right way? And if I don't think that I did, there's certainly a group of people that I can talk to about it. Say, hey, how would you have? Hey, if this situation came
Mhm.
up, how would you? Whether it was with a client, for example, it isn't even always with your own team. Oftentimes, it's with people who don't work for you,
Right.
and you have to show up as a leader. So to me, self reflection and then maybe looking for trends in that has also been something I think that's helped as well.
Yeah. No, for sure. I love that. I mean, to be self-reflective is part of self-awareness, so you're already evolved in that way. Because a lot of us are like, "Ooh, that was bad. Let me sweep that under the rug and move on." And we don't wanna stop and, like, actually assess it and learn from it. And maybe we don't even feel like we have time, right? So we just need to keep moving. But I think it's super important what you just said is this idea of, like, "How am I doing?" And, "I didn't really love that interaction." And adding on to that, if you need to kind of circle back with somebody, right? If you've had like a not great interaction with somebody, you have to pick the right medium of how you're going to communicate with that person as a follow up. So if you're feeling like, you know what, I want to clear the air on something, like maybe Slack isn't the best way,
Right.
or maybe, maybe emails, maybe the phone is actually the best way is to call them and to speak to them and, really be able to pick up on the real feelings that somebody's having after something that maybe didn't go so well. So I think that's really important as well. What shifted? Like what helped you become more self-aware?
For me, it was a combination of experiences and feedback, and certainly with the help of a coach, identifying those blind spots and dark areas of data that you just don't want to go into in your own corners of your brain, that he helped me identify through his process. But I think the answer is a little different. I think the answer is I had to go through some really hard things outside of work.
Okay.
And I think that life, the meaning of this could get deep, like the meaning of life changed for me. So I didn't take things, not that I don't take them seriously. I just didn't, they just weren't that getting in a conflict with or being challenged is not that big of a deal in the scheme of life. So I think it was context and just kind of reframing, um, you know, work life with in the context of your overall life and the meaning that I think I maybe put even, from an identity perspective, I think a lot of people put too much weight on their role or their title or what they do for a living versus who they are as a human. And that was probably the big pivot
Nice.
for me personally. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, that idea that you're touching on, that idea of respect is so incredibly important. And I think even in my most frustrating moments when I was managing people and I was younger, I did, even as a young person, even before I became a mom, I thought I would think about like, this is somebody's brother,
Right.
sister, daughter. Like it's like an old adage, like everyone is somebody's else, right? Like
Yeah,
somebody's kid or something. But it really does help you put everything in perspective because you're like,
it
this is
does.
a fully formed human. I'm never going to treat them disrespectfully. That's why. Why would you do that? Like, yeah.
And I think the other, we've all heard, everybody's dealing with something, and you just don't know what people are dealing with outside of the confines of work. And
Yes.
and I think from an empathy perspective, whether somebody's going through a divorce or they have a parent who's ill or they have a child who's ill or they themselves don't feel well, like something's happening with them. I come at that from that angle now. Like if somebody's not performing or something's changed in their performance, but they haven't come to me to talk about it, I may not assume, but I may give them grace on that because it feels like there's something else that's happening in their life that is affecting how they show up to work.
I love that you just used the word assume because just today I had a client today that we were talking about somebody that's on her team And she was like, he does not show up. Like, and I know it's because of this, this, and this. Like, he's not delivering, and I know it's because of this. And I'm like, do you? How do you know that? And we make a lot of assumptions about
Mhm.
people all the time. What we talked about from that conversation was the idea of curiosity. So you have to get curious with people rather than make the assumption, ask questions
Sure.
and ask the open ended questions, not the
Yep.
yes questions, but find out what's going on. Then, with that data, you can actually create some sort of plan for
Yep.
them to.
And that might be a time off. That might be a leave. It might be an EAP, connecting with I mean, there's just a variety. I think if you just, the big change for me was looking at people as humans, not as people who work for me.
Yes.
And that was, again, the output of life, my own life
Yeah.
experiences and having to compartmentalize what was happening outside the walls of the company. And then when I showed up for my teams, I had to show up. I
Mhm.
couldn't let that creep in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And this idea of like the respect idea and these are humans and it's stick. I mean, we've probably all worked with people who were more stick people.
Yeah.
And I bet we felt a lot less motivated
Yeah.
to help them. We wanted to maybe personally succeed, but it was all laddering up to somebody who was just like maybe not an awesome and inspiring person to be
Yeah.
working with. So this idea of certainly research on why would you create a culture of fear when you can have a culture of inspiration
Mhm.
and collaboration and support?
Well, I think culture, I mean, let's talk about culture for a bit. I think that's a good segue in building corporate cultures, having worked in some amazing cultures and maybe some not so amazing cultures. And by the way, I also like to bring, because I played team sports my whole life, and so a lot of, for right or wrong, a lot of how I think about teamwork is having been on winning teams and
Hmm.
seeing what that chemistry is like and what the coaching was like and leadership was like, and having built cultures, some of which have won awards and best places to work. I don't know. I think it would be really good to understand like your definition of culture and how leaders shape that culture, right? So whether it's how they show up, or to your point about carrot and stick, to your point about rewarding performance, or especially when things aren't going well. Because
Hmm.
it's easy to be happy and, when you're winning.
Yeah.
It's when you're losing that the culture really gets tested.
Yes. Right. And it's just like that saying, like, it's not how you show up when it's good, it's how you show up when things are challenging. I mean, culture, I think let's use a today word, it's vibes, right?
Mhm.
It's like, is this a place that people want to be? Is this a place that people feel, safe? We do hear that word a lot, this idea of psychological safety. But, do they feel safe? Do they feel supported? Do they feel inspired? This is culture, right? What are you setting up for people? Is it nice or is it not nice? It's like not a mystery. Like people overcomplicate ideas, right?
Yep.
Culture is just like, do you want to be there or do you not want to be there?
Right.
So that's part of it. I mean, that's kind of like my definition of it. In terms of, what leaders can do, leaders set the tone. So they have to do the work like straight out of the gate. And they also, by the way, maybe they're a great leader, but if they have somebody toxic on the team, they've got to take care of that too, because that brings everybody down. Again, I go to this idea of emotional intelligence is super important when it comes to creating the right kind of culture because it allows you to show up with the right kind of energy, the right kind of strength, the right kind of, how are you motivating people? Like, a lot of coaching. I mean, this comes up all the time when people are like, the leader is like, I don't know, it's not kind of coming together. The team's not really delivering. I'm like, do they know why they are doing the thing you asked them to do?
Yeah.
That's it. That's a pretty simple, like, again, it's all very common sense. It's like, when you were a little kid, you didn't like it when somebody was just saying, like, you have to go to bed. Why? Because I said so. Well,
Yeah.
not the answer
Oh,
the
that was
question.
my house. Yeah.
Right. But
Sorry,
it,
dad.
right. But it would be better, like, well, because then tomorrow you're going to have a better day. And really,
Right.
you really explain it. It's the same thing at work. Like, we don't want to just be, barked at and
Mhm.
demanded to do things. We want to understand, like, the work and the effort that I'm putting into this. How does it help? Like, what does it ladder up to? What are we creating here? I see my role in it. So it's the same thing of like, you're motivating people. You have to want to get in their shoes. You have to kind of show up with some, you want to show up with this idea of like, this is what we need to do. These are the goals, but here's how we can get there
Yeah.
and how you fit in. And yeah, no, sorry, I'll go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. And I think that the cultures that talk about talent is our number one priority and number one resource, but don't act that way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think it's more common than not, right?
Mhm.
Because they maybe feel like they have to say it. And I think a lot of folks, maybe even the younger generation of employees, are more show me, don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see a
Mhm.
banner in the lobby that says that. I want to feel it. I want to feel like you care about me, especially when things do get tough for somebody. I mean, I have a philosophy that family always comes first, right? So if somebody says to me, hey, my mom's not doing well and I'm going to be out for a week and we're right in the middle of something, I don't even think twice about it. It's family always comes first and
Yeah,
we'll fill in the gaps. Like go take care of your mom or your dad or whomever it might be. And I think if you're consistent on those things, people that's more saying you're the most important thing to us rather than putting a banner in the lobby.
totally. And then, the other thing is, do you even want that person at work that week?
Right.
Because you're gonna be totally
Right.
distracted. They're going to probably have resentment. Like it's not, again, that's like not what you're trying to get out of, to help support people in that way. I will say another thing about kind of the idea of culture too is the idea of just saying like, here's what we need to do and just do it. Like just get it done. We've all worked for people like that. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I know how to do this. I'll try. And there's no like guidance, there's no check-ins, there's no whatever. It's just like get it done. I'm too busy
Yep.
to do those check-ins. But that doesn't quite work for people either. I like to think about things. There's a good analogy with a mountain climber, right? The mountain climber, they know the goal, right? They know that they need to get to the top of the mountain. But if all they did was keep looking at the top, they're going to fall off that mountain.
Mm.
They have to pay attention to where this hand is going and then this next hand and this foot. Everything is very incremental and very present. And you are really paying attention to what's happening, what piece has to go here. And eventually I'll get to the top. So leaders who understand that and give their teams that guidance, that's really important, right? Because otherwise, if all you're saying is just get it done and I need it by Friday, and they're just looking towards that goal and they have no idea what little piece has to go here.
Right.
What are the increments I need to take to get
Right.
there?
Yeah, or saying, here's what we need. I'm here if you need me. Just WhatsApp me, call me, Teams me.
Yeah.
I'll help you get there if you get stuck in any part of the process. I'm right here, right?
Yeah.
Rather than throwing it on them and they come back 3 days later and it's wrong.
Right.
You wasted everybody's time. You try to be supportive for the group. I want to pivot for a minute because this is one of my areas that I love about what you talk about around mindfulness and conscious leadership. And for some reason, even maybe before I was in the professional world, Buddhism and I would say like new age thinking and
Mhm.
spirituality, I always connected with it, but I never really knew why. Like it was just something that always resonated with me. As I got further into my career, applied it to that, right? So
Mhm.
mindfulness and meditation and transcendental meditation and energy healing and a lot of kind of out there things that a lot of people would probably think are pretty woo woo, but for me, I have found to be helpful in self-regulation and managing my cortisol and all the things that come with
Right.
stress and inflammation because advertising is, one of the most stressful industries because
Yeah.
it's a creative industry and you're always under deadline and you have to deliver Super Bowl spots that people criticize the day
Right.
after the game. And so talk about how that fits into your approach and because I think that's really unique and interesting and certainly differentiates how you approach it.
Yeah. Well, I really love mindfulness and I'm glad to see that it's becoming a little bit more mainstream now in the workplace or like, leaders are they want it. They want to understand it better. I will I've been practicing different forms of mindfulness, which doesn't just mean meditation. That
Mhm.
is one part of mindfulness, but for many, many, many years. So all through when I was working and kind of rising up through whatever my career was, I would use it a lot because let's face it, every day we have conversations or situations where we are like, okay, I am not pleased. Like, 'cause I'm going to lose it pretty soon. And that was a time when I would just take a pause. And this idea of stopping is so foreign to people. When you just take, and it doesn't have to be a long pause, but when you take a pause and you just collect yourself, maybe you take that kind of a breath that calms you down. I'll give a quick tip here. Whenever you exhale a little bit longer than you inhale, it fires up your parasympathetic nervous system, which
Okay.
is your rest and restore. So already you've just pause and just take that breath. It will disrupt kind of the spiral of emotion that we can get into when we're feeling angry or frustrated or envious or whatever it is that happens in our day. So it allows us to do that. Then in that pause, we can actually access our executive function, which is not possible to access when we're in a frenetic state.
Yeah.
There's science behind that. So we need our executive function all day. It's our strategic thinking, it's our creativity and our planning and our decision making. So we can, in that pause, go, okay, I don't need to follow my anger. I don't want to be, want that to control me. What do I really need? Maybe I need to just like not say anything in that moment. That's okay. Maybe I just needed a beat and now I can, ask a question
Sure.
instead of get mad. So it just gives us that opportunity to figure out how we want to engage next. So that's how mindfulness shows up in the workplace in a big way. And it's really important that self-regulation is important. There was a few years ago, I taught a mindfulness workshop at the FBI, and it was like an extraordinary
I
experience
bet.
because I don't even want to know what those people know. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
tell me. But I know that their life is very stressful. And I thought it was remarkable that the FBI found it that important that they would bring somebody in to teach some mindfulness techniques.
That's cool. I also think too, I mean, again, not something I learned until later because I think the hustle culture, grind culture, go, go, go is kind of how I grew up. I realized probably 10 or 15 years ago that if I continued at that pace, I was I was not going to live long. I
Yeah.
mean, if you looked at a photo of me now versus maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I look younger now than I did then. And I think part of it is learning how to set boundaries becomes important, but also when I say boundaries, I don't mean in the course of the day. I mean from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day, that's mine.
Uh-huh.
And I go to the gym at 6 a.m. and we're global. So it's easy for me to have a call at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's from 6 to 7:15 or so. That's my time. That's blocked. Like there's almost nothing other than maybe my boss and her boss to get on my calendar.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah. I think that, I think finding those, that could be anything for anybody. It could be walks on the Beltline, like here in Atlanta. It could be bird watching, like someone I work with likes to do.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, getting outside, getting sunlight in your eyes, finding that moment to reset, reading has been a game changer because taking your mind off of what you're doing for me has actually found it to be, I've been more efficient
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. Well, there's that saying, you have to slow down to go faster.
Yeah.
And that's totally true because otherwise, it's like there are a couple I like sports analogies with coaching because it just works because we all want to operate like an elite athlete.
Right.
But elite athletes take a rest day or they take
Yep.
rests during their workout days
Yep.
too. They cannot go 24/7. They can't train nonstop for 8 hours in a row. They have to take breaks. We do not give ourselves breaks when we're in the workplace. It's just like a totally different mindset. And there's a lot of times I'll give people tips, it's awesome that you're taking that time, Paul, in the morning to set your day and to
Yep.
set the tone for your day. It's also important to take those micro breaks
Sure.
throughout the day.
Yep.
So even if it's like, if all you have is 2 minutes in between calls, which is a reality for a lot of people, just get up and do
Yep.
something different. Detach. Don't take your phone with you. Go make a coffee or a tea and be totally mindful in it. Like pay attention to just to that because it gives your brain a rest too.
It's good advice. I also like changing my environments, like if I can, right? So if we're not so strict about being in the office, although I live right next to the office, and then my client's not far down the street here in Atlanta. But changing the environment in which I work in, certainly I find to be, so I'm not in the same conference room, I'm not in the same office every day, or I'm not in the same I find that change of environment to also help with my mental health there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Right. It's inspiring, right? You like all of a sudden you're seeing different colors. You have different, scents around you. You have like there's lots of different things that spark a new kind of, rather than a very routine same old, same old.
Are there any books that you'd recommend for people to read on mindfulness, or um even applying it to, I mean, it doesn't have to be applying it to business, but just for people this might be a bit of a foreign topic for. Not everybody's
Mm.
into it, but maybe somebody would be interested in it. Like, where might they want to start?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I don't know, maybe I can look at my bookshelf.
I don't know if I have an answer. Let me think about mindfulness books.
I don't see any on this bookshelf.
I don't know that they're necessarily called like here, this is mindfulness for work. Like, I don't know, but there's a book called, oh gosh, is it called The Art of Tennis? I have to look it up because
Okay.
can I look it up now?
Sure, go. Yeah.
Okay, just let me,
No,
because
go for it.
like actually make it.
There's probably a book idea in there for you to write.
I know, right? I am working on a book actually,
Amazing.
legitimately, and it is for the mid-level
Oh, that's cool.
because they don't get training.
Then I'll get
Let's see if this is what it's called. I don't even know. It's so there's The Inner Game of Tennis. It's by a guy named Timothy Galloway.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so it's from the 70s, I think.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's still in print. And the reason I think it's still in print, and I have it, and it's because he doesn't call it, hey, this is mindfulness. But as I'm reading it, as somebody who practices and also teaches some mindfulness, I was like, this is mindfulness. So that I like that book. And it really is actually kind of talks about tennis, but you do not need to be a tennis player to appreciate what he's talking about. It's really about presence. It's really about shaking off, like releasing whatever that last bad play was,
Yeah,
right? Like get present again, get here now. There's on that note, there is also a thing that I advise people to with a phrase, begin again. So
sure.
begin again is a very foundational idea in meditation, but it becomes very translatable into work life because we are often beginning again. Look how many times, right? You've written like half of the thing or created half of the thing that you're working on, and somebody's like, that's not right. Or they've pivoted. They don't want that direction anymore. And you just think like, I've just spent the last 3 days on this. But that idea of begin again is like, okay, I accept that I have to do this again. And you know what? Maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be even better. So it kind of takes the edge off of that thing that we just put effort into. That Inner Game of
I like
Tennis
that.
talks about that a little bit as well. And like I haven't read Mel Robbins' book, but I do really appreciate what she brings to the table because this idea of let them.
I read it.
Did you? It's
I did.
also a mindfulness
Yeah, it
book,
is.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a reset. It's just a way to reset your brain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all of that to me when I see that stuff, I'm like, great, this is mindfulness. It's just not called, hey, this is mindfulness, but it's those principles and we can use them in all parts of our life.
I think that resilience, to your point about beginning again, when you said that, of course, is like rewriting a presentation deck, but you might find yourself, out of a job, or maybe some reason that you had no control over, and finding the confidence to get back on your feet, and the successes that you've had, and the positive things you've done in your career, and having the confidence to know that you can do it again
Yeah.
is also a skill set at a much more macro level, because you're dealing with uncertainty and pressure, and having to have that level of resilience through what could be a difficult moment. I know a lot of folks are dealing with that right now.
Yes.
What advice would you have for some folks that might not be in a seat right now, that
Yeah.
have amazing skills, but maybe are lacking a little confidence to get back?
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that like as weeks or months start to go by, you do start to feel like, hold on, am I not what happened? Am I not good enough? So I like this idea, this phrase, kind of a mantra, why not me? Right. So
Sure.
the emphasis on
Yeah.
why not me? Not
Right.
why not me?
I like that
Not
too. Yeah.
so it's really like, why not me? I know that I can do this. Why not me? I'm going to go for this interview right now, or I'm going to have this networking, this coffee with somebody. I'm going to go with confidence because I know what I've done and I'm as great as anybody else out there. So why not me? And the other kind of thing that I like to turn to when you're feeling a little bit like I'm giving up here, this is
Yep.
not going well, is remembering I have what they want. So this is really good. This is a good mantra before you maybe do an
Yeah.
interview or before you have an important meeting with somebody you just want to network with that you
Sure.
want to, I have what they need. So just going in with that
That's
mindset. So
cool.
so much of confidence is about the mindset, right? How am I feeling right now?
I like that. I like the why not me one too. I mean, for me, we could go down a whole, maybe it's probably another podcast, but this idea of just manifestation and visualization. And
Yeah.
if we wanted to get super new age about it, the whole quantum field theory and, putting things out there, which I found to be helpful,
Yeah.
for me and the people around me in my life. But that's a whole nother episode. We'd have to go down that on. So I think my last question for you is just to close it out. What's the one thing you hope leaders listening today take away from our discussion and can go act on tomorrow?
I think a really important one is you do not need to have all the answers all the time. And that is really okay. Like as it said, great leaders don't have all the answers, they have all the right questions.
Right.
So it's okay we're in a time when everybody doesn't know all the answers, and it's okay to feel that way. You're not behind, you're not doing the right things. You just need to be okay with that idea and figure out, like, have the clarity, right? Clarity is always the first step. So then you can solve for it. So if you realize like, okay, I don't have all the answers, but what do I need to know and
Yeah.
where do I get that information? So it's stopping to understand the clarity, then understanding what's the next step I need to take. And then the things we've talked about, which are, some vulnerability, again, not needing to know all the
Yeah.
answers, but
Curiosity. Yeah.
curiosity, but being able to still instill confidence that, but we're going to figure it out,
I love that.
and the emotional intelligence to do that.
I love that. Listen, I could talk to you for another hour, but we'll wrap it there. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank
speak to me. Where can folks find you?
For sure, they can find me on LinkedIn under my
Okay.
name, Lenore Moritz. So feel free to link in or DM me there. Um, I also have an email for my business, so that's Lenore at thismomentum.com. They can take a look at the website as well. Those are probably the best places to reach
Cool.
out to me, though, for now. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks
Yeah.
again for your time.
It was a lot of fun, Paul.
Really
Thank you so
appreciate
much
it.
for having me.
You bet.
Yeah.